of a young woman who walked into an office with excitement. She was the first black young woman in her whole family to actually work in an office. And if you think about the olden days, most black people just worked small jobs. So on this specific day, she was called in by Pete, and Pete said, oh wow, did I just call my father by his name? This is good. It's for the first time I do that.
Oh, it's not just a name.
No, it is him.
His real name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually shocked that I did, but it's good. So he calls her into the office and he closed the door. And he tells her that whatever's going to happen now, something that you can not tell anyone. And she feels that sweat on the spinal cord. And she realizes that I'm actually being raped. So I was conceived through rape. My father forcefully forced himself on my mother. And people ask me, why do you say it so casually? Because I'm thankful for that act, even though it was painful. It's painful to see my mother tell me the story of how she was raped. But if my mother was not raped, you wouldn't see me here. So I'm thankful for that act, for that. And yes, I'm sorry to my mother that she had to conceive me in this pain. When the man who was about to marry my mother, saw that this baby doesn't look like me. And my mother refused to say where the baby came from because she had not told anyone about the rape. Yes. So he took off her clothes because he had bought everything she was wearing. So he took off all the clothes, naked, in the village. And she did the naked walk of shame. And that's how my mother left me. So she couldn't raise me because of the shame of having been raped by a white man and having a white baby, and this baby not being accepted by the community and people. They did try to kill me and bury me, but they eventually decided not to.
Welcome once more to another episode of Dreams Made Possible, where we share life 101 conversations for a great life. My name is Botaki Hlalele, a life coach on a mission to cultivate personal mastery and self-worth in others. In this podcast, we conversate with personal development specialists, leaders across different walks of life who have left an indelible mark on others, and ordinary folk who have beat the odds to be where they are. Before we dive deep into the conversation, please click on the link below and subscribe so that we can grow a community of leaders. Just like all the episodes, we've got guests that have got a story to share. And today's guest is Tshepo Matlou. And welcome, Tshepo, to the conversation.
Thank you, Botaki.
And usually I like to introduce people, but in your case, I've decided to take a different view, which is just tell us your story.
Yes.
And so that we can understand what is who is the man behind the brand Tshepo Matlou.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and hi to everyone. So Tshepo is a young man that came from a seed that fell in the wrong soil. So one of these good days, my mother went to the hospital to give birth. And when she was there giving birth, she realized that she gave birth to something that she has never thought she would give birth to. And as she was there, she hears nurses saying things like, hey, Chinese, hey, white baby, what's going on? And she couldn't understand how is this possible, because she was on the process of getting married to her husband, who was darker in skin. She couldn't get it. And she asked herself, what is this? and got discharged from the hospital, walked a journey back to her village. And as she was walking, she thought, should I be throwing this baby into a river? Get to the village and inform them that I could not give birth, or I don't have a baby or something. But eventually somebody came and said, hey, do you want help? Can I carry the baby for you? And she got to the village where her mother, who's my grandmother, said, we cannot have this baby being raised here, because surely this is not your man's baby. And again, my mother was like, it's starting to sound right, but she's not sure because she doesn't know where this baby came from. But we'll talk about this baby at the end, where he came from. Tshepo was raised outside a small place called Tsanin. I was raised in a village called Den Village. So I spoke Tsonga most of my young Tsonga and Slobedu. Then I moved to a place called Nobody.
Yes.
So this Tshepo is somebody from nobody who wants to tell story for about everybody to be inspired. Leaving my village after finishing matric, I knew my family could not afford to take me forward. Like most young people and most of the guys that I work with, my mother got a loan from the person she was working for. I did only first 6 months, did marketing, started working, came to Gauteng. But long story short, 40-something years later, I have become a life coach, transitioned into executive coach, and currently I do business coaching. And I speak on leadership issues, and I get invited to events and other companies as a speaker. But I think over time I've learned that we are who we are based on how we reflect to ourselves. So I'm not the qualifications. I am not what my mother gave birth to. I am me. And in short, that is Tshepo.
Wow. So, as you said, we'll get back to where the child came from.
Yes.
But then I would imagine this child, if there was, let's call it, for a lack of a better word, doubt, or this cognitive dissonance that parents were and the elders were going through in their family, this boy now grows into the community.
Yes.
And I would assume that he is a little bit different from others in the community.
Yes.
If that is true, what was the experience and how did you go through it?
You see, when people tell me that they have experienced apartheid under a white man or a white woman, I will tell you today, I experienced apartheid from a black person.
Wow.
Yes. So the word apartheid for me meant being apart from something.
Yes.
And that was me. So I was isolated because most people treated me like I'm something different.
Yeah.
You know, I used to be called umlungu, lehoa, white boy, a bushman, all these sorts of things. And I had a great sister, and if she watches this, thank you very much. My sister is called Lucia. So my sister used to say, you know why you're different? Because our mother used to drink umqombothi, you know, the traditional beer.
Yes,
and that's why you are like this. Don't worry, you are black like all of us.
Yeah.
And I believed that. For years, I thought, yeah, she's right.
Yeah.
It makes sense. If you drink umqombothi, it's colorful, I'm like it. So I did experience a lot of trauma as a young person. Some of the traumas included the fact that I couldn't go to town. Because if I went to town, whoever that goes with me might be arrested. Or they might be questioned around, hey, who is this?
Yes.
Even my own mother shared with me that there was a time when they thought I was dying. But no one was willing to take me to the doctor clinic. Everybody refused. Like, no, I'm not going. So my mother took me to the doctor. And when she got there, the doctor came out and said, lady, you with that baby, jump the queue and come straight here. Then my mother like, okay, the baby is going today. And she was willing to give it up. When she walked in, and the man says, okay, from now on, if the baby is sick, Don't even queue, just come straight. And she couldn't understand why. And the guy even gave her 2 rand. 2 rand then was a lot of money. So, okay, here's 2 rand. Buy something for this baby. This baby's problem is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's medicine for free. Consultation for free. You are not paying. Told the lady at reception, this baby will come here for checkup. He's not going to pay. But the isolation I experienced was more around, Tshepo, you are different. Tshepo, you're not black. And by the way, I can share with you today, until today, I still get asked, who are you?
Yeah.
Isn't like today when I went to buy bread in the morning, I was asked by the lady, why are you talking black language? No, I'm black. No, you're not.
Wow.
So I still get that.
Okay.
I jump queues at Home Affairs, even in banks.
Yeah.
So I found myself getting this nice favors sometimes because of color. But people don't understand how it feels like not to be identified as who you are.
Correct.
And it also creates a question in me, who am I?
Yeah. And what is your answer to that question?
I am a human created to become me without questions of color, language, name. I'm not Tshepo. And I'm not Tshepo Matlou. That is not me. Those are things that society created me for. Yes. You see, my mother conceived me in pain. And we'll talk about that pain.
Yes.
And I'm not how I was conceived. No. What happened to my mother did not happen to me. I was conceived, created for something bigger than me.
Correct. Yeah.
So I am not my identity. I am not my language. In fact, all South Africans who speak different languages, you are not your language. You are not your tribe. If we had to take a child from somewhere in East London and take that baby to China to be raised there, the China will never identify as Xhosa. It is not about the roots of our ancestors or those that came before us. No, it is not. It is about how we identify ourselves. In my house, my rules, my new roots that I've created.
Yes.
My new culture that I've created. My new tradition that I've created. I can tell you this for free. I do not follow anybody's tradition. I do not follow anyone's culture. Because they were created by their forefathers. Why should I believe in that? And I'm not saying people should not. No, people continue. Hey, it's good. Following a culture and a tradition. But I have mine, by the way. In my house, I have my own ways of living. So the question around who are you, it's broader. Because for me, who I am is defined by myself based on how I see myself. So if you had to ask me, Tshepo, are you black or white? I'm going to tell you I'm not black. I'm not even white. In fact, I'm not colored. I'm human. And it's not about being African. Yeah. Because even the Africa was named by someone. So I am a person who has been brought on this earth for a purpose that even my own spirit might not be able to see or know.
Wow. Now that's so awesome. And I like what you say, because what I have learned about associations, if I may put it that way, association, and then you are right, culture is important. People can follow it. I follow it as well. But what I have also learning from what you are saying is the attachments and associations that we form. Sometimes they barricade the things that should be taking us to go forward. We associate with certain religions, certain political spaces. You can mention a few things to a point where you also cannot separate yourself from who you are in the bigger scheme of things. But you said you are not Tshepo Matlou, and you spoke about who you are. It takes a lifetime for some people to get to that realization as to who they actually are. It's easy for people to tell you what they do.
Yes.
Very easy. I'm a teacher. I'm a podcaster. I'm this. But who are you? That's why we start with that question. Tell us about yourself. When did that realization come to you to say, this is what I am? I am not what I'm defined I'm not defined by my circumstance per se. I'm not defined by my surname, by this and this and this, but I am this.
So you used the word barricade. And I'm not sure if you realized, but when you used it, you did this.
Yes.
You saw that, right?
Yes, correct.
So when you barricade, it means you create something, you create a block. And that is why I had created blocks and boxes around myself. And I remember very well sitting and thinking, how do I get out of it? So I had an encounter. I was working in government. I was a deputy director. And one of the gentlemen was leaving and I was sitting down. And he said, bye-bye, umlungu. So remember I told you earlier, when I was young, I used to be called umlungu. So when he said that, I actually stood up and pushed the chair aggressively. And I went to him and I said, what? What did you just call me? So what just happened? My brain had gone to childhood.
Yes.
So I was where? I'm using the word again, to barricade. And I realized on that day that I had been stuck in the pain of my childhood. So many people, and a lot of people don't say it a lot. We are raised by the community based on its experiences. Abuse comes from an experience. Rape comes from an experience. Stealing comes from an experience. We learn these things as we grow, and they become part of us. They are what I call the unsaid cultures, the unsaid traditions. It's things that we don't openly talk about. Things like when a woman disrespects you, you hit them. But how do men get there? Because it's unsaid culture. So as you grow up, you see it happens, then you can do it because that's what you know. A woman must bring you water to wash your hands. Then you wash. I'm trying to get to your question because a lot of people, they take everything from childhood up and it restricts them from becoming themselves. So in my book, I talk exactly about that. The fact that a lot of people have been stuck and they cannot be unstuck until they make a decision. And that decision has to be personal. It's not a decision that you can just go to a psychologist and then after 3 sessions, like, yeah, now I've made a decision. No.
Yeah.
Psychology is the process of healing. But the healing has to be accepted by the one that is hurt. And that is why when that day, I nearly fought with this gentleman, I started going therapy. Eventually, I left government. And after leaving government, I met a gentleman by the name of Sai Shabalala, who actually helped me to con freedom.
Yes.
And I remember very well, we were invited as speakers. I was already speaking. And we're talking about my book. And he kept on, so what is this book all about? I said, it's about my freedom. I said, but what is this freedom all about? And for me, it was about breaking away from things that created me. Breaking away from things that I grew up knowing. Breaking away from the pain of what had happened to me into creating the new me. You see, when people say you can create the new you, I didn't believe it until it happened to me. So you asked how. So how it happened to me is I started writing my book, which is Freedom, Set Yourself Free. And in this, I was trying to look at what are the things that I used against myself? What are the things that were holding me back? And what are the things that happened to me that were part of a journey? So I realized that over time, I had been prepared for the next level all the time. And that I was not living a conscious life. I had lived so much unconscious that when I was 21, I was actually a manager. At 22, I had a house, I had a car. At 23, I had 2 cars, I had a big house in a town. But somebody who's 21 right now might still be at school. Yeah. By the time I was 30, I had properties, I had cars. But I never saw it as pride. I never saw it as big. I just continued like that until when I became conscious. Conscious to say, I am not my cars, my houses, my money. There is more to being human than qualifications, than being called something, a title. Like if someone says, Tshepo, you're a business coach. But business coaching does not define who I am. It's an act. It's what I do with business owners that makes me a business coach. But the reality is, by name, I'm Tshepo. But if I did not have a name, people will identify me by saying, are you colored? Are you white? Are you black?
Yes.
And that is why it's a stereotyping mentality. So how do we break? We break by being able to forgive those that do not deserve our forgiveness.
Yes.
Number two, we have to be able to consciously take steps for ourselves to be able to identify things that have actually hurt us or has made us to be sad, and be willing to release them out of our system.
Yes.
Because it's only when we release that we can make space for new. And that is why the human in us will always evolve over time, through anger, through excitement, through happiness, through hate. We just have to choose which are the things that we need to bring out.
But I think one of the things that I have learned working with people as a result of coaching and stuff is the size of our doubts and fears are related to the level at which we are integrated as human beings. The low level of integration you have, the more fears and doubts you have. That's why when somebody says anything, there are triggers.
Yes.
You just jump and then go to those triggers. But the more you expand yourself by reading and other stuff, as you say, you become more conscious of yourself. Okay. But now, having said that, for somebody to get to a point where they say they're going to identify things that hurt them, it means that there's a line.
Yes.
And they need to cross that line.
Yes.
The challenge is most people are afraid to cross that line.
Yes.
Probably because they don't know what lies on the other side of the line.
Yes.
And crossing that line comes with a certain redefinition of what I don't know. But my question is, as you articulated so clearly, people need to identify things that hurt them. Maybe using your personal experience and probably fusing it with your coaching. How then do you guide somebody to cross that line, to go poke there where they are afraid to go? Because I agree with you, that is a point of healing.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The greatest fear that we must all have is one. All of us. So all of us were created, so we're born. We're on earth. We're here already. The only fear is to die, not having achieved what we set ourselves to achieve. That is the one fear we should have. And I agree with you, by the way. People are scared to go deep into what happened. And that is why over time, we have been able to see young people who do not get along with their parents. And they say, I hate my mother or I hate my father. Because they project themselves with their pain to their parents and they are pointing fingers. The day when you stop pointing fingers and blaming your parents for not being able to raise you, the day you realize that there is power within. You see, each and every human being was created for a purpose. And that purpose is not even known by the parents. The difficulties and the challenges you face are part of your journey to become what you're created to become. The problem is when you get stuck into identifying and blaming and shifting, you are actually delaying yourself to become the best person that you can become. So what do? We need to be able to go back and say, okay, can I cross the line? And cross it. Like I said, the fear is to die without achieving. Therefore, the fear of going back and searching should be an easy one if we really want to grow. But for you to detach, it means you need to be able to detach even from your own parents. I know people are going to say, Tshepo, it's easy for you because you were not raised by your parents. I was not raised by my mother or my father. I was raised by multiple people, including my grandmother, that I'm grateful for. The principle of detachment is important. And the reason it's important is for us to become the best version of who we are as humans. We need to be able to separate ourselves from what has happened to us, from what others have done, even from what we have done. And that is why when we forgive from a point of, I forgive myself because I've done things even to myself, and I forgive those that have done. Here's the thing about humans, is that we judge from a space of experience. What it means is, I dislike what I do best. So if I'm with someone, they do what I don't like about myself, what do? I get angry.
Yes,
so they trigger. I like how you use the word trigger, because people are being triggered by their fantasy. So if you are in a relationship or marriage and you find yourself struggling with how your partner is, it might just be their, what we call a hidden mirror. So they're the part of you that you don't like, and they're bringing that as part of your healing process. But instead of being able to embrace that, you hate it, because that is the part of you that you don't like.
Yes.
But we don't make time to say, okay, I didn't like that, but why? Because we can trace it back to childhood. And that is why when I sat down with Sai and we started looking on how to write the book, we said, what is the story that you want people to know? And we said, okay, the biggest thing is being able to free yourself. But when we looked deep, we realized to free yourself means a lot of things. Means being able to brave enough to say, I'm going to take this path, even if this path is not popular. I am going to do this even when people do not like it. You know what is? We have fear. And I know somebody who watching here has a fear to leave that job, has a fear to move out, has a fear to go and study further, has a fear to sell that car, has a fear to lose that house, has a fear to start again. But the fear is now enslaved. So you become the slave of your own fear. So you can't go on. And I spoke about being born for purpose, being created for something bigger than what our eyes can see. So fear and doubt prevents you from becoming better. Because it gives you comfort. And human beings like comfort. And that is why we like pay slips. Because they open a door for credit, for debts, for this, for that. But we forget that we continue to fall into slavery.
As a result.
But anyway.
So thanks for unpacking that for us. There's one part that I liked at the back of your book. As a human being, you are unstoppable. And therefore, you should approach each situation in life without fear of the unknown. And I'm reading this because of what you have just said about fear and how you didn't use the word paralyze, but let me, with your permission, use that word to say fear has gone, is something that paralyzes a lot of people. And there's good fear, which cautions you to say, hey, it's against my value system. I don't have to go there. But there's this fear that dims our light. You know, and my question is, having spoken about fear and comfort zone, I think one of the reasons why people are afraid, one, I'm not saying all, is because with responsibility, I mean, with you jumping that line we're speaking about, facing your fear, comes responsibility. And once you take charge of your purpose and things that you need to do, you have to be responsible to see them through. And some people do not necessarily need that. It's easier to blame. It's easier to say, it's not me, it's my father, it's my mother. Was it not for them? I could not have been called a colored umlungu and this. And I'm more interested in how do we build this in human beings so that they don't die with their songs and take them to the graves.
Expectation has created a lot of damage. Society expectation has also created a lot of damage. So we have personal versus society. Society says, I'm seen every morning wearing a full suit with a tie, driving a big car, going into the corner office. If I wanted to leave all that, to cut trees and look after gardens, even though this job can actually multiply my income, I wouldn't do it because society expects me to look good, to drive well, and to have a corner office. You see, what has happened over time is that people subscribed to what others expect of them. And that is where we see this. Somebody is good at something. They're so good. And then they tell them, hey, in fact, when you're good at this, you must follow it. It's your path. Only to find, no, actually, that is not your path. You are good at it as part of your journey there. There only. Your next path requires you to be good at that and be able to manage people who are good at that. But guess what? We move into what we're good, we get stuck. And then we become unhappy. Like, but people, everyone thinks I'm good at this, but I don't like it. Yes, because you are actually stuck in what you don't like. But because you've been paid to do it, you do it so well, but you're stuck. So we need to stop to meet the expectations of others. We need that. My parents, I go to them and I say, I'm going to leave my job as an executive and I'm going to start a business. Everybody all of a sudden is having hypertension. People are now sick. People are now having reasons why I cannot start a business because no one has ever started a successful business. Society expectations. Let's talk about personal expectations so I can answer the question. Personal expectations is that when I turn 30, I want to have a big house. When I turn 35, I want to have a wife and children. I want to be a CEO. I want to be this. I want to be that. We define our expectations based on how good we look on others. So when all these things are there and you realize as an executive, you now have to work 21 hours or you have to travel the whole world and you are now tired, you don't even have time with your children. Your children are not experiencing you as a mother or as a father. Why? Because you are busy living the best life that you have wanted, but you are tired. Why? Because of expectations. Some people are going to die tired, chasing, running on things that they don't like, on things that they make good. In fact, we are going to bury people, remembering them, saying, had a PhD in this, had this position, had this position, but we will never remember you as a person. We'll never remember you as a guy who was digging the hole when somebody died in your community. We'll never remember you as a guy who used to cook and go to those that I need to give them. We'll remember you as a social media person who took nice pictures and posted so that people can see how good you look, how good you. In fact, when you donate pads to girls, you even want to show that. Those girls don't want to be seen being given pets on social media because it's a private thing for them.
Exactly.
But for you, it's about, yeah, abamponeng. It doesn't work that way. And that is where we have a problem of people being unable to shift because of their expectations.
Yeah.
So we need to break that. And to break that, it means we need to disconnect from people that makes us to want to be this thing that we are not. So you need to look at your associates, your friends, your people they want you to excite them are the same people that are making you to want to become bigger, thinking it's for you, and it's for them.
Yes.
So
their dreams through you.
Yes, actually, you put it right. So people are actually living their own dreams through you, and you are like the celebrity. But when you die, that's the only thing that we're going to remember.
Wow.
So I'm going back to the same words. Each person was created for a purpose. And that purpose is not to hate. It's not to hurt others. It's not to show off. It is to help others. It's to serve others. is to do humankind, to do things that makes people to feel good. And that is why most of us became coaches, to be able to guide and support people to become better. But for who? For themselves.
Yeah.
Not for us to celebrate it. I have coached over 200 people, but I don't remember their names. And I'm deliberate in not remembering them because my journey with them ended when we finished that relationship. They are doing good and I'm proud from far, but I'm not posting about it because it has nothing to do with me. My journey was to pick them up. And I said, can you walk? They said, I leave them. They walk. I'm like, okay, you can walk, but I'm not going to drag them with me.
Okay. What's the source of your drive? You mentioned that 21 you had already achieved, and then you were driving your car. 30 you had houses or property. What is the source of that drive?
My drive has always been my spirituality, and I'm not ashamed to talk about it. This is not spirituality in terms of traditional healing. This is not spirituality in terms of Christianity. This is spirituality in terms of my connection and the Creator. When I was young, I used to have a lot of encounters. In fact, when I turned 21, I had a dream that I was going to be appointed a manager. I saw the color of the paper and I saw the contract. I saw the amount and the position. I didn't know what it meant. And a few weeks later, I was called into an office and I saw that paper on the table and it was pushed to my side. And when I looked, it was exactly what I saw. Position, amount, role, everything.
Wow.
Now, this is not about whether I believe in this or that. No, I'm not talking about beliefs. I'm talking about something that everyone has. Whether you believe in God or you don't, whether you believe in ancestors or you don't, we are all spiritual beings. And I have seen myself being driven to that. Even meeting Sai and being able to get him to help me to build the book, it was a spiritual encounter. Even today, sitting here talking to you, for me, it is a spiritual encounter. And this is not a belief. This is my own thing that drives me. So when I wake up every morning at 4 and I'm thinking about what's going to happen, I can feel the presence of the Spirit that talks to me. And I can see what is it that I need to be doing. I go to sleep in peace, knowing that, okay, I've done well. And there are times where I don't sleep the whole night. I can't sleep. And I look at the time, it's 5 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I couldn't sleep the whole night. But I'm not sick. I'm not worried. I'm not tired. Because I have a journey that I have to continue. So my spirituality as a person is the one thing that drives me. I believe in myself more than anyone. I can tell you today, if I was stuck on the N1, I will not call a friend. I will not call a relative. I will not call anyone. I'll ask the Spirit, what do we do? And the first thing that's going to come to my mind is exactly what I'm going to do. I will not panic. When somebody dies in the family, I'm not jumping. I'm like, okay, I just had this, so what do we do? I don't rush into making decisions. And sometimes people are impatient because they're like, Tshepo, are you taking long? I'm like, no, I'm still waiting for a message. And this is not prophetic. This is not, I don't know. I'm trying to not put it, so when somebody's watching, it's like, Maradiman, what is he talking about? But this is what drives me.
Yes.
And people that come into my life are driven into my life for something all the time. And that is why when I coach SMMEs that I'm currently working with, and I was counting actually because of the hours that we need to log. And I realized that I've actually worked with more than 200 small business owners. And I was like, how did we get there? I was not counting. But everyone that I've encountered succeeded somehow or the other. Because there are people that came into my life and also helped me to succeed. And I'm just giving back, same thing. So what drives me is the spiritual centering of myself and my ability to be able to give others so they can succeed.
You know, I agree with you that no matter what you call it, I believe that, as you have said, I believe that all of us, we have got that capability.
Yes.
But the challenge is that we've got so much noise going in our heads.
Yes.
There's negative self-talk that is happening. We don't listen to clues. You know, when they say success leaves clues,
Yes.
we don't observe and listen to those clues.
Yes.
And that is why, whether you call it, whatever you call it,
whatever.
there is this intuition that informs people to say, hey, don't go that route, but you can go this route. And once it has happened, especially if it's on the bad side, then we say, wow, I had this niggling thought that said, don't go that route. So from that perspective, I don't know, I'm trying to summarize just to check if I'm understanding you.
Yes.
Is that what you are saying?
That's what I'm talking about. And I like how you put it bravely. So the only time you can experience this experience is when you start separating yourself from people, separating yourself from the noise, separating yourself from the things that feeds you. And I write about it in this book.
Yes.
And it's because when you separate everything, then you have nothing left but yourself. And in this life, it's about that. It's about being able to see yourself alone and not fearing to be lonely because you're not alone. And I think that is important for people to say, hey, by the way, I'm not alone, but I'm going to separate everything away from me so that I can be in the presence of myself. But I want to share this part, just last part on this issue. You see, when you have a lot of friends and a lot of people around you, and they start to worry about themselves, for themselves, about you, for themselves, about themselves, but for you. What it means is Tshepo is succeeding. So Tshepo buys a G-Wagon, right? People around me they don't even have cars. But my next level is to buy an aeroplane, right? And now, as I come closer to buying the aeroplane, something come across and cuts through the G-Wagon into two pieces, and I'm now in an accident and I can't walk for 2 weeks, right? So the car gets written off and the dream of the aeroplane goes away. And those that worry about themselves, for me, are like, oh, at least he doesn't have that anymore. Okay, no, guys, we can still catch up. So what happens is the spirit of giving gives everyone around you first when you have a lot of people watching you, so that you, when you get your blessing, which is the aeroplane, which is bigger, they must have been served first. It's like going into a restaurant and your meal is 1,000, but everybody's meal is 100 rand. They must eat first. When they are full, you will have your 1,000 meal. It's a metaphor what I'm trying to draw.
Yes.
And as you eat it, they are so full. They don't want your meal. They don't even feel like your meal. In fact, they're looking at your meal like, hey, Shem, it's nice. What I'm saying is, the more people you have in your cycle, the less successful you become, the slower success you become, because of what? We talk. We talk about our dreams. We talk about where we want to go. We talk about everything. And when they hear and they listen and they worry, the spirit worries.
Okay.
So it's more like, I have fear that if your blogging becomes very big, you'll be rich. Now, the spirit that protects you says, he is going to be big. So we're going to add in 2 years or 3 years. Because if he becomes successful now, it's going to be a problem for the people around him. So people around him, let's give them something nyana so that they can be happy. So by the time we give you, then you have succeeded. The reason I was drawing that is because I've seen it over time, whereby people don't understand why things are going wrong. They go to traditional healers, then they're like, it's witchcraft. They go to prophets, they're like, no, it's witchcraft. They go, it's friend. No. Sometimes it's not even about those things. Sometimes it's about the fact that we talk too much about our visions, our visions worry others. They don't sleep at night thinking about how big you dream. Therefore, your dreams, even though they're big and they're supposed to come through next week, they delay because people around you who are listening to your dreams are worried.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual encounters teaches us to be able to connect directly without fear, but in silence.
Mm-hmm. Tshepo, thanks for sharing that. And I mean, have had a couple of times this thing, and I believe in it of don't share everything with everyone because the dream was not for them, it is for you. But I also want to go back to what you said about the example that you made, and I'm asking so that you put it into context so that I understand it for what you say and also the viewer understands. You speak about the example of the 100 Rand meal that you give the others, and then you've got your 100.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that view with teach those of that you give 100 Rand to create their own 100 Rand vis-a-vis giving them the 100 Rand? I don't know if I understood that well, so I just wanted you to put that into context.
So I'm taking your question. So that's not where I was going.
Okay.
So it was an example around the power of giving, not giving because people are underprivileged,
yes,
but giving because people are deserving.
Yeah.
It's like 10 people who work in the contact center, and all of them are call center agents, and only one of them will be promoted. So you might find that 5 of them start acting, but actually the one who's going to be promoted is not even acting, because the one that is going to be promoted is being prepared.
Yes.
But even him or her doesn't know. So those that are acting are already ready to become. And what happens is somebody else from outside becomes the supervisor, and those that wanted to become supervised, they become depressed. They're like, but guys, it should have been one of us, the 10. But the guy or lady who's supposed to become, they're not even talking. They're not even thinking, because it is their journey. But now that everybody sees that the new supervisors from outside, they are not happy, right? Yes. And the new supervisor gets shifted to another role within the organization, and one person from the 10 has to be promoted. And they say, we have heard your cry. But you see what's going to happen? If this he or she was appointed during the 5 that was acting, it was going to be war. So now that somebody has come and destabilized it, even him or her becoming a supervisor is like, at least it's one of us, guys.
Yes,
let's be happy. Yes, that's what I was talking about. I was talking about when is your time to get or to receive, but the Spirit wants to protect you against those around you. So the Spirit gives those first. And then when they're satisfied and happy, then you just fly up. But talking about the concept of giving those, and I'm just jumping into that as a question, is we have to be able to give people skills to be able to provide for themselves. And there I will always agree, because our people need to learn that they are able to do within themselves, and their fear of creating, which is a problem.
Yes. Okay. So we have explored from the beginning how I would surmise the part of what we have discussed up to now. I see mental toughness having to come to the fore as a result of your upbringing and having to challenge the status quo, redefine who you are, the identity piece. But then I also saw a video where you're talking about the importance of taking care of your body.
Yes.
And it seems like you had went through an experience.
Yes.
Would you like to talk to us about that?
You're Googling me. So I had a car accident. I nearly died. I was actually driving. I nearly had a head-on collision. I remember this day very well. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning. I was driving. White buggy comes on the road, nearly collides with me, but then I go on the side. But I didn't know the road. So when I went, because the car I was driving was big enough, so I was like, I went out and the car rolled. I'll tell you about that experience. When the car was rolling and I was inside, I said the following: is this time? And what I heard was no. Then I said, save me for the sake of my children, because they are young. And the car stopped rolling. Paramedics were there within 10 minutes, which shocked me because I didn't call anyone. The police were there. I came out and I was bleeding. So look, I couldn't walk for 2 weeks, right? But when they came, I was standing outside. I was looking fine. I was not even aware I was injured. I was bleeding. I had injured my back. And I looked at the car. Everything was broken. The front glass, the back glass, the side glass, everything. I'm going to do illustration with this book. So I was sitting here as a driver. This whole car was smashed everywhere. Wow. But you see where I was sitting and the seat and the glass, everything was still the same. So the glass in front was broken only one side. The car on top had gone back. At the back, like everything was broken, but only the part where I was sitting was not broken. And that is why I don't have fear to talk about the encounters, because it was one of them. I nearly died. I was airlifted to hospital. And the first person I spoke to was my mom. And I said to her, I'm thankful for the life that I don't deserve, because I would have died. And it was bad. And it got me thinking when I got out of the hospital that I needed to look after myself because I had gained so much weight. So I started intermediate fasting, eating at this time, not that time. But I realized later when I was sitting that I needed to have that accident for a journey that I was about to take. Okay. So then I became thankful. And this is my message to you. Whatever encounters you have had, pain, people doing something to you, I would like for you to take a moment and thank them. Thank even those that nearly killed you. Thank even those that created stories about you. Thank those that gossip against you. I thank all of you because it's through you that I can realize my dream.
Yeah, you have already answered it, because I was going to ask for you, what did you think this encounter, accident signified for you? Yeah. But you have articulated it so well. But what was the recovery like from the hospital? Did you have to dig deep inside yourself to get out of that situation?
I think the first day I was very weak, very, very weak. I kept on asking myself, but why? And I think at night, that's when I got the answer. You need to rest. It's time for us to put you away for some time. And I took that in. I realized that we get so busy with so many, many things. I was talking to one of my friends. Actually, he was talking at a gathering that we had in Limpopo. He says, Tshepo possibly has friends that can be full in a bus. And Tshepo can call on everyone. But Tshepo is busy. Tshepo is very busy. You can't even reach him. So something like this type of accidents, of which, by the way, I have never shared with people that I had that accident. So people don't know. It was my family who knew. Okay. And the reason at some point I was like, should I even show the photos and social media? No. I kept it off. I said, no, let me put it under the rug. Yeah. And I think the only resilience that I got was, you need to come down and start detaching. I had so much going on and I started detaching. I even canceled certain business transactions I was busy with because I realized even this one is a problem. Even this guy, And eventually you just get to a space where you're doing one or two things. But when you look in the fridge, there's still bread. When you look in the tin, there's still meal. When you look in the plastic, there's still rice. Like, okay, my children have never seen that actually I've changed a lot of things because they have not been impacted, because the provision is still there. Yeah. But I learned a lot through that process, and I'm thankful. Even though it was painful, I haven't recovered until today fully, so I still suffer from back injury. Okay. But I'm thankful for life.
For life. Yeah. I was having a conversation with another lady that went through a horrible accident in 2010, and she said for her, that accident was day one of a second chance. Yes. And without putting words in your mouth, that's really what I'm getting you saying as well, with the situation. So, just to change tack a bit, I just want to find out, when we take all these experiences that you have shared and those that you haven't shared, and you look at you today, how have they shaped your outlook now into life? And especially imagine that with your coaching surgeon.
The power is in being able to tell the story like you were there.
Mm.
And you can never tell the story like you were there if you have never been there. And as a coach, we don't tell people what to do. We help them to explore their journey and be able to get there.
Mm.
But when they share the pain, we should be able to feel it. And in my case, when they share, I've experienced it. So I go into it. And I think for me, everything that has happened to me has shaped me to be where I am today. And I'm thankful for that, because today I talk mostly from my own personal experience, challenges, successes, and I'm able to say it's possible, because I have started few businesses before. Some failed, and I'm proud they failed because they taught me something. Others, partners, we fought and we took the money. I'm proud it happened, because today when I coach a small business owner and he says, I want my father to put 50,000 in my business, I say, okay. How do you think that is going to look like in the next 5 years? Okay, what happens when your father dies? Who do you now owe? Like, hey, I never thought about that. You see, I can't tell him straight to say, hey, once you take the money, you're going to owe even your brothers. 50,000, now you're a million. And they're like, no, you wouldn't have become a millionaire if it was not the 50,000. Yeah. So it's those things that now I'm able to relate. But most importantly, I've had a lot of personal lessons that have also shaped me, through others that came before me, through those that I could lean on and be on their shoulders. I did not become great because I'm good or intelligent or educated. I also became great because I had support systems. I had people who coach me. I had people who mentor me. I had people I could go to. But I always limited that to exactly that relationship and move on. And this will go to everyone. Mentorship, even coaching, is not forever. It has to be a balance of you coming in, bringing yourself, take and go. So overall, I would say from personal to business to working, everything came full cycle back to being me, as in like, okay, now I know what it means to be an executive, presenting a board. I know what it means being a life coach, being a motivational speaker. I know what it means being an executive coach. I know what it means to work with psychologists and all that. I know what it means to work in conflict. So, but everything was about shaping me to get to a point where I'm able to speak with authority based on what I've learned.
So I hope that the message that I'm getting out of you is that let's not underestimate the value that comes from the experiences that we come across, both positive and negative, because there are lessons in both that creates the better we in the long run. So, Tshepo, you have shared so much with us, and I think there's richness in what you had said, but we cannot, in my view, finish this conversation before you answer the question that you put towards the end of the conversation, which is, where did this baby come from?
So, it's a painful encounter of a young woman who walked into an office with excitement. She was the first black young woman in her whole family to actually work in an office. And if you think about the olden days, most black people just worked small jobs. So on this specific day, she was called in by Pete, and Pete said, oh, wow, did I just call my father by his name? This is good. It's for the first time I do that.
Oh, it's not just a name.
No, it is him.
His real name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually shocked that I did, but it's good. So he calls her into the office and he closed the door. And he tells her that whatever's going to happen now, something that you can not tell anyone. And she feels that sweat on the spinal cord. And she realizes that I'm actually being raped. So I was conceived through rape. My father forcefully forced himself on my mother. And people ask me, why do you say it so casually? Because I'm thankful for that act, even though it was painful. It's painful to see my mother tell me the story of how she was raped. But if my mother was not raped, you wouldn't see me here. So I'm thankful for that act, for that. And yes, I'm sorry to my mother that she had to conceive me in this pain. When the man who was about to marry my mother, saw that this baby doesn't look like me, and my mother refused to say where the baby came from because she had not told anyone about the rape. Yes. So he took off her clothes because he had bought everything she was wearing. So he took off all the clothes, naked, in the village, and she did the naked walk of shame. And that's how my mother left me. So she couldn't raise me because of the shame of having been raped by a white man and having a white baby, and this baby not being accepted by the community and people. They did try to kill me and bury me, but they eventually decided not to. And by the way, I'm thankful for that as well, because they could have killed me during the olden days and buried me. So, but I just want to say this. I don't know how you were conceived. I don't know how you were raised. Maybe you don't know your father or your mother. But I want to say this to you. You were created in whatever way, challenging space, because it needed to happen to you so that you can have a story to tell for somebody else to be in a better space. And that is why when I see young people who don't get along with their parents, I envy them. I envy that you know your father, because I don't know my father. My father doesn't want to see me. Does it have to make me a bad father? Let me become a better father. And that's why all my children know me and I'm there in their life, because I cannot be my father. One of my friends likes to say, we are not our parents. We are not what our parents did. We are not how they raised us. And I'm saying the same. We have to stop it. So it ends with me. And going forward, I want to build a community. I want to build a household that knows the truth about who we are. And not from description in a community or culture or tradition, but from us seeing the truth in each other.
Tshepo, thanks for sharing the story. We always proud ourselves with vulnerability, because at the end of the day, someone's story is shared so that the other person can craft their own journey out of it. It's not about copying the story, because you cannot relive another person's. So we usually end on this platform with Life 101 lesson that, based on all this experience, and you have shared a few nuggets, but if you were to point one that we say, if that was my last wish for any other one, this is the lesson that I've learned in my life, and live with that lesson.
No one owes you anything on earth. No one. Not even your parents, not even your kids, not even your partner. You owe it to yourself to become better, to heal, to succeed. You owe it to yourself to become the best human being, the greatest human being is you. You have to learn to love yourself more than the expectation of love from your partner, from your children, from your parents, from everyone. In fact, when you feel like you're not being loved, I want you to look at the mirror and see and project into that person. Because the person on that mirror is the person that must love you more than everyone. Don't seek love. Don't seek validation. Don't seek attention from others. Seek it from yourself and being able to give it to yourself. You belong to yourself. Give yourself the right to have your own rules, to have your own concept, to have your own ways of doing things. Life is about you when you make it about you. Thank you.
Tshepo, you have shared wisdom, you have shared nuggets, you have shared real life stories, and for that we are thankful. And we believe that this is a story that will shape someone's worldview going forward. And to everyone, really, from this story, I learned that we are all born whole, irrespective of the circumstances. We are born whole. However, we go through experiences that takes or chips away certain elements of our essence. But the way for us to grow beyond those wounds and what has been taken away from us is not to mask, it's not to defend, it's not to eject, it's not to deny, but to appreciate those challenges, acknowledge them, so that we are able to reframe who we want to become, so that we can become better versions to others as well. Until the next episode, thank you.